What's up everyone, welcome to today's video, welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. The developers at Avalanche and Portkey were able to bring us a gameplay showcase number 2 today, and we're just going to go ahead and dive into the combat. I'm going to do an overview for this discussion because I'm sure no one lives under a rock, and some of you even got to watch, or like one of my audience members and and one of our OGs in this community, Pablo, said that they listened to the gameplay showcase. I can understand, bro, because sometimes you're not in a position where you can actually watch a video, but man, an 11 a.m. showcase is one of those things where I hope and pray that they can do one like, a 4 or 5 p.m. one, maybe Eastern, Central, or whatever, so that you can have a bigger audience. But it is what it is. The developers would love to go home at the end of the day too, so I can understand. Now, one really cool thing that I do like about the combat is, surprisingly, the fact that you can dodge roll. I know this got me so excited. You would be shocked that something so simple is actually, in my opinion, very critical for what I think this combat should actually look like. Because there are a lot of really interesting enemy types. Yes, it looks like you can block, maybe even have a parry window of some kind to be able to retaliate. Not even maybe, you can have a parry window of some kind when you do like a really cool block, and you can respond in kind if the enemy NPC is still locked in their animation. And so this is just the one thing that I just want to say thumbs up to the developers for. I can stop this video here and go and get my deluxe edition of this game and call it good. In fact, that is exactly what it is that I'm actually doing, because this was a very interesting combat segment. Now, what the developers did was they took us into a combat arena, which is what I really do like about a lot of video games. I feel like many video games don't necessarily prioritize this, and the fact that this is actually within the Harry Potter lore in terms of how the developers were talking about this is, something in relation to a room of requirement of some sort. I think that's what they said. Remember, I wasn't watching with all of my concentration, so I wasn't necessarily able to listen to everything that was mentioned. But however, and regardless, it's nice to have a really dedicated training area with all kinds of fun enemy types that come at you in waves that somehow are, sporadic in quote. I mean, when you say sporadic, it's all been programmed to be specific in a sense, but it's programmed to provide a little bit of, spontaneity. And I like the way you are able to just basically take on these enemy NPCs, cast your spells and your curses, and go on into gameplay. Now, one thing that was very interesting that a lot of people pointed out were whoever was playing this in the IGN version of this video went in straight up and threw down some of the, I would say taboo curses in the training area. Apparently, some people are talking about how this might be a lore thing. But honestly, when you get to the combat of a game, you really want to, go ahead and throw down. If you're in the middle of, say, a very tough fight and you see a big old troll, or you see like an enemy NPC that's giving you problems, at that point, Avada Kedavra being, some kind of a, prohibited spell is not really on your mind. You really want to melt the enemy NPC, and that's what your goal is going to be. And the developers were also talking about cooldowns and control measures, so you don't go ahead spamming a lot of these spells just like that, and then the game becomes some kind of a cakewalk. And difficulty is something a lot of people are looking forward to. I see this game having a very good difficulty setting if that's something the developers are putting within the game's programming, because of the way the enemy types are different, the way the enemy types play, and a lot of what the enemy types are about. So I don't think that's really a big problem for this game so far. And the combat systems and the way the spells are, it will be nice for us to be able to see a few more things in regard to how spells are selected and all kinds of other things. But I think the developers wanted to go ahead and emphasize a few key points, like the combo system that the game has. Now, for those of you who were watching and you were looking, you can see that there's a combo counter on the bottom right side of the screen, which actually counts your combos based on your attacks. And this is going to provide an interesting gameplay aspect for a game like this, because yes, as much as the game is an RPG game, enemy NPCs are affected by health and so on and so forth. It appears that this is going to be a combo system that has a little bit of a leeway, something close to how, I'd say, the Spider-Man combo counter actually kind of works. If you go ahead and you kind of think about it, that combo counter is a little bit more lax in terms of, when it's counting your combos. Like if you notice, your character here or their character is able to move around and has like a timer between when their combos are basically going to expire, or if you get hit, your combos expire. I am ready to explore this system, chain combos and spells and all kinds of fun stuff. And I'm sure many of you here in the community are. So this is, in my opinion, one of the more critical aspects of this game in regard to some of the player base. I just want to fight bad guys. That's why I'm kind of here. But also, yes, it'll be interesting to be able to follow through the progression, level up, get stronger, be able to get more potion recipes and all, the combination and all of the different aspects to be able to get my character to be really strong. And I really would like for this particular training arena to have some level of diversity. And I would say, when I say diversity, I mean something that, really provides a little bit more layers in it in terms of how you pick a select enemy types and how it is you want to approach the combat. For those of you who know, like God of War Ragnarok, if you go to Niflheim and, in Ragnarok anyways, what the developers did was they made it where you can actually select enemy classes as you eventually start to engage in the combat, compared to the first game where, you got basically a bunch of draggers, depending on where you are in Muspelheim, you can actually do a lot of those, premeditated warm-ups is what they call them. But this is really neat overall, and I'm really excited to see more in regard to the way the combat flows. But to be honest, I don't really think this game is trying to harness a lot of that. I think there is the aspect of exploration that the game also wants to highlight. So even though the combat may not necessarily look deep at this moment, I think there are different areas of the game that have to be spoken about in conjunction with how they gel with the combat. So I don't want to come in here with just a combat mindset. I want to also be able to highlight some of the other areas. And I think the developers really did a good job today showing some other parts of the open world, showing some other parts of how it is that you're going to go ahead and, interact with everything else within the game and within the school. And I'm sure as we start to get more of the game unfolding, it's really going to bring a lot of things into context. So I'd love for you guys to respond and react in the comment section to what it is that you got to see that got you excited today. It could be a combat aspect. It could be something that was out of combat. There's so much that I got to see, and I've not even scratched the surface of that. And we're going to be going, I think little by little into some of these different elements just so that we can highlight them as best as we possibly can. Thanks so much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.